Living in two realities at one time. Is it possible? This video is inspired by the teachings of Wayne Dyer. This is part one of a two-part series, and part one is about presence and peace, as explained by Wayne Dyer, and he had his own personal experience when his mom was transitioning, and it's fascinating what he shares. Wayne Dyer explains both realities as the body, which is the biology, and the soul consciousness. And those are the two realities that exist. I like to call them the physical and the non-physical. Kabbalistically, the 1% reality, which is the physical reality, think of it in terms of your five senses. Anything you could see, touch, feel, hear, taste, part of the physical reality, like this chair, like my body, and the non-physical, which is anything that goes beyond the five senses, and that's the non-physical. Kabbalistically speaking, what they call the 99% reality. Now, Wayne Dyer has an interesting explanation for these both realities. He calls it the finite and the infinite. He says the body is finite, talks about the biology of it, and he says the soul consciousness is infinite. And he says that the body, this part right here, which houses the soul, this part with biology eventually will end. And so the body breaks down, it has a beginning and it has an end. The soul consciousness, however, lives on forever. That's the infinite. And the way I like to describe it is this. When I held my daughter for the very first time, the love I felt and still feel is so powerful, whether I am with her in person, not in person at that moment, as she's grown up. When I think about a family member and I'm not in the same state and I'm thinking about them and my heart feels good because I'm remembering the love of giving that person a hug. This is non-physical. When there's the both realities, specifically when Wayne Dyer explains when his mom was transitioning, there's a finite, there's an ending, a biological end when the body stops functioning and the soul lives on. That is the infinite, the feelings that we've had when we hug someone that is living and they're in another state and you could feel that feeling. It's the same feeling when someone has transitioned. You close your eyes, you could feel it. The only difference is that they're not in the body anymore. And Wayne Dyer shares this infinite and finite explanation as he talked about his experience when his mom was transitioning. Wayne Dyer always likes to say that we are not human beings having a spiritual experience, rather spiritual beings having a human experience. And it reminds me of the song I used to listen to, I think it was the 80s, and the musical group was The Police. And the lyrics in the song are, "We are spirits in the material." I loved that song, listened to it hundreds of times, till one day, decades ago, it's like I heard it for the very first time in a different way. And that is what Wayne Dyer is trying to explain, that we're here for a moment in time in these bodies and that the soul consciousness lives on. Wayne Dyer explains is about the two layers he experienced while watching his mom transition. One was the physical layer and one was the non-physical layer. And he said during watching the physical, again, he says body equals biology, he saw a slowing down, a calmness, a peace. The breath starts to slow, the body starts to relax, the shoulders start to soften. That's the physical process. And the physical process also, inside the body, the biology, things start to shut down. The body actually has an intuitive knowing of when to transition, meaning that there is a slowing down of the appetite, a decreased appetite, decreased breathing. And people who have seen this with people they love, it could be a cause for concern. And the body is making preparations to disconnect from the physical world. So people may see this as someone they care about not eating or drinking. However, the body's making a preparation to disconnect from the 1% reality, from the finite reality of the body. The second layer is the non-physical layer. People that have had the experience of transitioning, thinking that they've died, they were pronounced dead in many cases, and they say everyone has one thing in common. The love they felt was nothing they could even explain by using the vocabulary they have in this world, and that there's such an overwhelming amount of love beyond, again, what they can convey. What I heard was something from Oprah when she was interviewing someone who had an NDE, a near-death experience. And this person said it had to experience the pain that she has caused everyone in her life, also had to feel the pain that everyone else has caused her in her life. I had never heard that before. There's this whole concept about forgiveness when a person is transitioning. They go through a life review. Wayne Dyer talks about karma. And he said that when someone is being caused pain by someone else, the person that is causing that person the pain, that's that person's karma, the one that's causing the pain. Now the one that's feeling the pain, their karma is how they react to it. When someone has caused me pain, not speaking nicely, in my personal case dealing with someone who has extreme narcissism, I didn't know what it was until about a year ago. I understand I've been the victim of it. I now understand that when I was so highly reactive for such a long time in my life, that was my karma. And now that I understand what it is, I could now think about how our brains are wired differently. This is now my karma to transition that. And that happens in everything in life when we experience anything that feels like pain, to try to rise above and find the higher reason and why something is happening. When someone is experiencing NDE or they are transitioning and not coming back, as in Wayne Dyer's mother's experience, he saw her going through this stage of being in both worlds. While she was still here physically, he saw her while she was experiencing, seeing her life review or going through this forgiveness process or feeling pain. This is what had inspired him to discuss about having peace and presence around someone he loved when they were transitioning. When someone is going through that process, Wayne calls it presence and peace. Give a loved one permission, gratefulness for them being there. There's all these times to say that to help bring about this calmness and this peace at this person's time in their life when they're transitioning. And these kinds of things can help the soul that does not want to leave the body to transition. And the person who told me this had lost her father. If the soul has a difficult time leaving the body, and then they hear people around them in this material world, it's going to be even more difficult. So the process, the peace and the presence that we want to provide and have at that moment is about letting the person who is transitioning have the opportunity for the peace, providing forgiveness to them for any pain maybe they've caused you, letting them know how grateful you are to have had them in your life if that's how you feel. I'm not suggesting lying. Anything that could give this person peace. That calm music is another thing that helps. And in this video, I will include in the description below different prayers that have been provided by people that have lost their parents and what they've done at the time when someone's transitioning, that the body's sensitivity is so strong, so not having jarring music is really important. Peaceful, easy things. It could be calming music. Anything that brings peace and calming for the soul and the body is really good. There's things that someone should definitely not do, and that is to have frantic activity around that person. No overly overt actions that would make the person uncomfortable. No yelling, no screaming. Speaking softly around that person is very important. No over-explaining. This is a big one. I think a lot of people, perhaps if they've had issues in friendships or family relationships, there's not a need to have over-explaining. The soul knows what's going on. Can someone be living in both realities at one time? Wayne Dyer has confirmed this is possible by the experience he had while he witnessed his mother transitioning. And these are tools that everyone can use if they are fortunate enough to be with a friend, someone they care about, or a loved one during this time. And in part 2 of this series, there's going to be a surprise. Stick around to learn more about this process.